GBPUSD. And what an interesting and how will I call it? Let me say an intricate setup this one is for us on this asset. So firstly, it is quite clear that we have been selling the GBP USD since the beginning of the week, as we saw price action break down very important levels that we identified during our live sessions on Monday and Tuesday. Then we also had a couple of trend lines here, which of course has been guiding our trading activity since the beginning of the week. Remember, we connected the series of lower highs here, which gave us this couple of trend lines, which of course we have been using to guide our moves. And of course, we agreed that as long as price action remains below that trend line, we have no business buying the GBPUSD, but continue to consider selling this instrument. Now, though we had a couple of stop losses at the beginning of the week, remember? So let me run through how the week started for us here in this community. So at the beginning of the week, we saw how price action was initially ranging, giving us an insight into the uncertainty in the market at that particular point in time. So we had price confined within the 1.286 and the 1.28450 level to give us an insight into that uncertainty. And you know how we do it in this community. We always look out for either a breakout of the resistance line or the breakdown of the support line for an opportunity to trade. But one thing that was peculiar about this structure on Monday was that price action was sitting on a very strong accumulation zone that we identified on the higher time frame. So for the sake of clarity here, I will quickly show you a snippet of what the 4 hours time frame was looking like on Monday, and this is what we have here. So this is the 4 hours time frame, and of course it's quite obvious that price action has been very bullish in the last couple of months in this market. I think since the beginning of this year it has been very bullish, and the fundamental factor that explains this bullish momentum is the inflation situation in the United Kingdom. I think at this moment the United Kingdom has the highest inflation rate in the major global economies in the world. And as a result of this high inflation rate, the Bank of England has deemed it fit to increase the interest rates to curb this inflation rate. And by increasing the interest rate, you know what that means? That means if you invest in the pounds, then the yielding return is higher compared to the US dollar in this case scenario, which is about between 5.25-5.5% as at this point. So as a result of this, investors and traders have been investing and placing their bets on the pound sterling because of the high return that is expected on if you invest on that asset. Now, with the situation of things right now, it appears price is back into an accumulation zone, which we identified at the beginning of the week, and we said if price action stays above the accumulation zone, we are going to be looking out for buying opportunity. And technically speaking, the trading activities for this week, despite the fact that we have been witnessing bearish momentum since the beginning of the week, technically speaking, price is still within that accumulation zone. And not until the accumulation zone is broken to the downside that we can start considering a significant bearish move to the downside. So within this area where price action is still reasonable that we can still look out for buying opportunities. So let's go back into the 1 hour time frame. I just needed to show you what things are looking like on the higher time frame so that when I talk on the 1 hour time frame, you get to understand what I am saying. So like I was saying at the beginning of the week, we had this range, and because of the fact that price was above the accumulation zone, we had the buy stop order above the resistance line with the hopes that price action will break out the structures to find new highs. But unfortunately, we were taken out of that position in a loss to trigger our sell stop order below the 1.28450 level to trigger our first sell position for the week. And since then, we have been selling the GBP USD as we rode the move all the way to the downside, added more position. Remember, we identified this level at the 1.28150 during our live session yesterday, where I said we are going to be capitalizing on the breakdown of that structure to add more sell position to our existing trade. And if you are taking advantage of that move, you will see from the first sell position, we saw price move over close to 100 pips on that single move. And for the second position at the breakdown of the 1.28150, we saw price move over 70 pips in our favor. So it was quite a very interesting position. Though we had a loss at the beginning of the week, we were able to recoup the loss and even add more profit on top of it. Now, I'm going into the New York session today. First of all, congrats to everyone who are taking advantage of that opportunity. Now, going into the New York session today, and while trying to dissect the current market structure this morning, I was able to identify a simple setup that I think we can use to guide our trading activity for today. Now, before we go into that, the first thing I observe here is that price action has been caught within a range, and that is between the 1.27980 and the 1.27480 in the last 22 hours now, giving us a clue into the level of indecision at that point. Now, secondly, in addition to that one is the fact that price action has been finding higher lows in this particular market. Now, if you look at the structure closely, you will see that the lowest point price action has gotten to this week is that 1.27480, giving us a support level there. Then we have another higher low here, as you will see since the early hours of today, how sellers have found it difficult to break down the previous low. And when we begin to see higher lows on the chart, you know that we are expecting a bullish momentum, and this is a sign that buyers are gradually gaining momentum behind the scenes. And to further emphasize this, I was able to connect the series of higher lows to give us an ascending trend line, which of course is going to be one of the major parameters we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today. And of course, you know how we do it. As long as price action remains above the ascending trend line, we want to be looking out for structures and patterns that will support the idea of buying that asset. Now, in addition to this whole structure here, if we take into consideration the impulsive move that started this week, you will see that price action appear to be transitioning into what looks like a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure. Now, when we start noticing that price action is transitioning into a double bottom structure, the next thing we normally do in this community is to identify a neckline which we are going to be using to validate that this reversal pattern has come to stay. So we have our neckline situated at the 1.27980 area, which we are going to be waiting for price action to break out of this neckline to give us a confirmation that truly we now have a reversal pattern. And one more interesting thing about this neckline is that it also shares a confluence with one of those descending trend lines that has been supporting this bullish momentum since the beginning of this week. Now, with the situation we have here, if price action breaks out of the neckline, it would have also broken out of that descending trend line, which would be a sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate those bullish attempts. And this will be a beautiful opportunity for us to get ready to join a bullish momentum. Now, there are two ways through which you can take advantage of an opportunity above the structure. Well, from a technical standpoint, we expect to join only when a breakout happens. Then we scale down into our lower time frame to look out for a retest, confirming that this is truly a reversal pattern. Then we can join that bullish momentum to the upside. So that is one way you can capitalize on this opportunity, and this is suitable for those who are joining this GBPUSD trade for the first time this week. Now, for those who are already profitable on this asset this week, then you can afford to leverage on the profits you had made so far this week to take advantage of an opportunity there and test waters and see if this bullish momentum here is going to click. So what this simply means that you could have a buy stop order for those who are already profitable on the GBPUSD this week to test waters and see how far that momentum is going to go. Now, remember, you need to have your stop losses in place. Very, very important. And your stop loss could be below the ascending trend line or anywhere around those lows there where we have been noticing buy pressure since the early hours of today, which will dovetail to between 20 to 25 pips stop loss on this single move. So let's see how the market will play out. Will this bullish momentum become valid? Will this reversal pattern become valid? Well, a breakout retest of the 1.27980 will answer that question for us. So let's be on standby to capitalize on that opportunity if a breakout of this structure happens. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunities here on the GBPUSD, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers too as well. As you all know how we do it in this community, we also want to consider the opposite direction. If it happens, we want to be on standby to catch that move. Now, if we are going to be selling the GBPUSD today, what do we want to see on this chart for us to join a bearish move? And don't forget that we have a descending trend line here, which of course is still containing this bearish momentum. As long as price remain below the bearish trend line, of course, we want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of selling. Now, to sell this area here, I would rather want to see price action take out all the buy positions along the 1.27480 to give me a signal that sellers have come to stay and that we are going to be having a downtrend continuation. But I also consider that how can I capitalize on this bearish momentum before the breakdown of that structure happens so that I can milk in more profit if price action will go to the downside. So as a result of this, we are going to be using the ascending trend line as our guide for today. As you will see, a breach of this ascending trend line is likely going to be inciting a sell-off. So how do we capitalize this move? So the first thing I want to see is price breaking down the ascending trend line. First of all, remember, we are not getting too excited. We are not jumping in right away, as we will still need some confirmations to happen before jumping into any move. So as soon as we sight the breakdown of the ascending trend line, you want to be scaling down into your lower time frame. Could be your 5, 10 or 15 minutes time frame to look out for confirmation, which of course will reflect on the chart as a retest of the structure where continued selling pressure there will welcome the selling opportunities we are looking for. Then we can have a sell stop order below the 1.27480 to maximize the potential of that bearish move. So that is how I intend to join any bearish move in this current market structure. So let's see what will happen prior to the New York session. And I implore us to be on standby to capitalize on this move. So all you want to be doing right now is to mark out this level, as this is the map we are going to be using to guide our trading journey on the GBPUSD for today. So if you have any questions whatsoever as regards to the current setup, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before I move on to the next instrument on our watch list. And you can as well take your time to mark out those levels on your chart.